Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. How do we learn to truly thrive together? How do we stay connected to our authentic selves, each other, and our purpose as a team, especially when challenged? How do we unlock the deeper levels of group intelligence? Enjoy this episode of the Connected Teamwork Podcast and learn practical tools to evolve the connectedness of your team to its next level.
Hi there, Carson Hetty, and I am here for the July 15th edition of the Connected Teamwork Podcast. Thank you for joining me. My more illustrious co-host Hilke Faber is not with us today. He's on a much-deserved vacation, but we're going to be spending some time today talking about connectedness amidst chaos, catastrophe, and challenge. I would say of all of the constants right now in the world, all of the conflicts, the uncertainties, whether it be wars, famine, political strife, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of uncertainties. And in times like this, our connections become lifelines. It's so critical that we're finding ways to prioritize relationships. And there's a number of ways to do that. And so today we're going to be talking about how and why connectedness becomes so important amidst times of uncertainty. And frankly, how we can lean into those types of relationships and connections to ideally find new ways to connect amidst the chaos. This is the Connected Teamwork Podcast, and we're live streaming currently. If there's any comments or questions that you have throughout the session, please feel free to put those into the chat, and I'll be happy to dive in and address those. I appreciate the live viewers that are on, and also those that are checking out the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. So as we start today, again, it's definitely a time of a lot of chaos and catastrophe in the world. And there's a number of global challenges that we are finding ourselves thinking about and reading about and viewing on a daily basis. And amidst all that, it doesn't change our innate need for connection. Humans are hardwired to desire, to crave social connection. And these things become more pronounced when we're seeing the bad news, as it were, or when we're feeling separate or separated from others because of polarized views or challenges that are being faced. Whether we're facing personal struggles, whether it's global crises, or even natural disasters, being able to create and nurture connectedness is so important, not only for our well-being, but also for resilience and continuing to work well together. Connectedness is at the heart of everything that we do as a person, but also, as we've spent many episodes exploring, as part of the organizations that we work with, the teams that we're a part of. And everyone that we work with, especially now with the ability to work globally, with so many different others, you're going to be working with people that have different and unique perspectives and vantage points and experiences that are very valuable and valid. And it's critical that we are finding ways to understand what they may be grappling with. And then often we seek to learn, we seek to understand, and we find that common ground and that ability to really meet people where they are. So today we're going to explore different strategies to really create and sustain meaningful connections through tumultuous times. We always spend a little bit of time at the beginning of the Connected Teamwork Podcast talking about why connection is so important. And, again, we talk about how we're hardwired for needing and craving connectedness, but it's also when we do our best work. We thrive when we feel connected And that could be to the mission of what we're doing, to a project. Um, that's when we're connected with family. That's when we're connected with friends and community, or even when there's a connection with a stranger or a new contact. Um, we want to find out more. We want to explore that connection and build on it. Research consistently shows that social support improves everything from mental health, stress reduction, and enhancing physical well-being. And so, during chaotic or catastrophic events, when we are naturally also going to be programmed to have a reaction, our social bonds are going to give us a semblance sometimes of safety net. They can bring emotional comfort, and they can also bring that sense of belonging when everything else is thrown into chaos. But again, maintaining connectedness is not easy when all of this uncertainty and adversity is thrown into the mix. Um, some of the challenges that can come about: physical separation. I think one of the most obvious examples that I can talk about is, even just in the pandemic. Obviously, many of us were thrown into physical separation, and many studies have been done on the ramifications of that from a mental health perspective, and some of the ways that we needed to grapple and cope with that separation. Some people thrived being taken out of potentially toxic environments, and being behind their own closed doors, and leveraging technology. But on the same token, families are often torn apart, whether it's in not only just the pandemic that we all experienced, but during natural disasters and wars. These force physical separation, which are very, very challenging. Restricted travel, entire communities being displaced. And that is a distinct challenge to connection. Furthermore, in times of these, like trauma and grief and anxiety, that can, be part of emotional distress. These hinder ability to connect. Oftentimes, our reaction in these moments will be to withdraw, as we fear vulnerability or burdening others with how we're feeling in these situations. Trauma and grief and anxiety can stem from many different things, from personal experiences to incredible changes within teams, talking about organizational layoffs, or when a potentially significant changes happen within teams, all the way to world events, things that cause emotional distress, and these can all cause us to turn away from the connections that we have. And it's all the more important that we find the right ways to lean into those. And then furthermore, another big challenge to connection amidst all the chaos is information overload. Right now we live in a time where we're bombarded with information. Every time you so much as pick up your phone, you are being shown all kinds of different information, news, social media, messages. They can be very, very overwhelming in any given sitting. I know I can sit at a meeting, and my phone might buzz in my pocket 50 times. And every single time that's happening, it's distracting to us. And now more than ever, as we are exposed to all that information, it can be all the more challenging, because not all the news we're seeing is good news. Frankly, quite a bit of it is not. And that can be very challenging as we are looking to maintain connectedness while seeing a lot of this information that sometimes can be the very thing that pulls us apart. So, what are strategies? What are some of the strategies that we can leverage for creating and sustaining connectedness, even amidst all the chaos that's going on in the world? So, it comes down to the prioritization of the relationship. We know that the relationships are important. So, how can we prioritize these relationships regardless of what's transpiring? I always tell myself and others that I mentor, the importance of that discipline in your scheduling the things that matter most, checking in regularly, reaching out to loved ones, even if it's just a brief text or a call, a quality touch, as I like to call it. I've got the people on, it's a short list, but I've got the people on my list that, I want to make sure I check in with at least once a week, people that I'm very close to make sure that they always know that I'm thinking about them. And besides, trust me, I would never want the only time that somebody hears from me being me wanting something from them. So I'm always trying to make a quality touch to the people that matter most so that they know that they matter. They know I'm busy. And so I think it matters all the more that they're able to see me showing up, checking in on them, and making it about them. It's not me showing up reading the news about myself. It's checking in to see what is new in their world, what matters to them, and diving in a little bit deeper than just saying, hey, how are you? How's the weather? Quality over quantity. So really, again, focus on deepening existing relationships rather than just going after and chasing superficial connections. I think sometimes we get inclined to go after the like or the vanity statistics in social media, and accumulating a lot of friends or followers may look good on a feed, but this is merely an aesthetic number. And the reality is, these are not necessarily people that you know everything about. Their likes and dislikes. Their perspectives. You know what matters to them, what gets them out of bed in the morning. And frankly, in my most important relationships, those are the things that I want to know. I want to know the things that the people that I care about or that I want to get to know better. I want to know what really makes them tick, what motivates them, what matters to them. How many people do you have a deep relationship like that with? And keep that tight knit so that it's manageable, but also be intentional about how you're doing that. That's extremely important when you're looking at creating connectedness. Another big one is leveraging technology. There's a ton of ways that we can do this. In today's day and age, technology is at our fingertips at all times. And so there's so many ways that you can do that when you're scattered, when you're spread apart, when something is keeping you apart. And I think it's critical to know, and it's actually really consoling to know that sometimes some of the biggest, most chaotic things that transpire, or some of the things that almost exacerbate the lack of connectedness, is going back and leaning into connectedness. And there's so many ways now that you can even virtually gather. I've had friends and family that have been separated from me across the globe through the last few years, especially with the pandemic, or how they were deployed in the armed forces, or even just friends and close colleagues that are trusted advisors, but that are halfway across the world. And to be able to, in essence, talk to them at just about any time, those things are very, very powerful. Even looking at it from a family perspective, I think we get grounded, and we're able to kind of come back to reality sometimes when we can get back to our roots, back to our foundation. And while it's not the same to not be able to see family members, sometimes from halfway around the world or the country on a regular basis, to go years without seeing some of these folks, the ability to see them on a very regular basis virtually is something. It's something meaningful, and it enables you to really expound upon and deepen the relationship in the day-to-day where that would not have been a possibility just years ago. Think about ways that you can leverage technology to plug gaps. Video calls can bridge physical gaps. And then furthermore, mindful use of social media. I will say one of the most challenging elements of social media is that there's so much noise. There's so much jockeying and posturing to be seen, to be heard, to be considered right. And the reality of the matter is there's multiple sides to each story. And one of the most important things that you can do, especially if you care about someone, It's just to understand their perspective. Far too often people will, and I've been guilty of this, albeit not in recent years, um, because I've made a conscious effort not to do it, but to come out with very strong opinions on social media and to feel a very certain way is okay. Um, but you also want to be open to gathering intel from other people. I find a lot of times, especially in the toxic political climate that many of us sometimes see, that there's a lot more of us that are closer to the middle than we would probably give ourselves credit for. And that if we showed up able and willing to articulate our point and what matters to us and why, but also to listen to what matters and why to other people that we claim to care about, or that we work with, or that we share space with, then it would go a very, very long way. Mindful use of social media basically means, instead of accepting the fact that you can go out on social media and blindly say a lot of things without recourse, just don't do it. Share positive stories, offer support. I've loved being able to see how social media can be used for things like fundraising or praising people or lifting people up, positive recognition, especially in today's workforce, looking for ways that you can do, a praise channel or commending others, sharing best practices. There's so many ways that you can lift people up with social media, as opposed to tearing people down and sharing things that are polarizing. Next, I would say community engagement. There's so many different things that you can do right now that create connectedness and also put you in touch with and working with other people that could be like-minded, or they could share ideology, like volunteering. Helping other people creates connectedness. It builds connection. Joining local or online volunteer groups. There's so many of them that are out there right now, and being able to give in that regard and spend time. I have never taken part of anything from a volunteerism perspective and not left without a smile on my face and a new friend. You have great conversation, and it really is fulfilling, and it's for the greater good. And these are things that you can do as part of a team as well. I'm very fortunate today. I work as part of an organization that exists to support nonprofit organizations. And so a lot of the work that we do is in support of them, but very frequently we do volunteerism events as part of our team. And because of this, it forges additional camaraderie with the team. There's fun stories of the time that we spent together, but also it's very fulfilling because we've been able to do something that's bigger than ourselves and for the greater good. I would also call out attending events, community events, even virtually, building community around what you do. Take a look at what you and your teams that you work with do. What communities are you or could you be a part of? How could you build more around that? Finding a common shared space, finding common things that you can be learning together. Amidst uncertainty and chaos, and when things are going very, very differently, doubling down on looking at ways to spend time together in person, spending time looking at those commonalities. Sometimes one of our biggest hindrances is that we let the lack of commonality guide us, as opposed to the latter, and leaning into, or the contrary, and leaning into the opposite, leaning into the commonality and where there are synergies and where there's opportunity to find common ground. And if we found more opportunities to find common ground, we'd have a lot less of the chaos in the day-to-day. Don't get me wrong, we don't have a lot of control over some of the calamities that transpire in our daily world. Nevertheless, we've got a lot of opportunity in the interactions that we have with other people. And if we continue to look for ways to engage with communities, create communities, invest in communities, we'd have a lot of opportunity to improve that status. Another one that I wanted to point out was around self-care and compassion. It starts internally. When I think about connectedness, It always starts with self and making sure that you're connected to yourself, understanding your own needs. Um, are you in a place where you can be your best self today? Do you need a break? Do you need to take a moment? One of the things that I will say in today's world, there's a lot more hybrid work transpiring. I know some of us are back in offices full time, but many of us are not. Many of us are in this hybrid or remote work, and it gives an ability to schedule the things that are important to you. I schedule time for myself often to make sure that I'm spending time in the gym or reading or doing things in self reflection. And these things are very important to make sure that you're showing up to each situation as your best self. Because guess what happens when you do? If you are right and you are connected with yourself, the likelihood that you are going to show up and create an environment that's conducive for other people to be their best selves is much higher. And frankly, that is where empathy will come into play. Because once you come to it from a better place, you can extend empathy to others. You can listen much more actively because you're less consumed with what's going wrong in your world. And you can also make sure you're validating the experiences of other people. And that will go very, very far when it comes to connectedness. Another area where connectedness can be created is through creativity and different ways of doing outreach. What's great is we still have the ability to reach out to just about anyone in the world, whether you want to write something handwritten or sending a note to people in your family, people that are your friends. There are many, many ways that you can reach out and stay connected with people. I love going back, and especially through the years that I've worked in the company that I work for, even just keeping in touch with people that I've worked with on prior teams. I've made no qualms about sharing many of the moves. In fact, every move I've ever made in my career, except maybe one, has been because of relationships, great relationships that have been created, people that I've worked with, teams that I want to gravitate toward, great leaders that I want to gravitate toward. And so I find a lot of value in staying in touch with people that I've enjoyed working with over the years. You never know where life is going to go. But if you gravitate toward the people that you want to make sure you're still in the sphere of, if there's a great leader, a great teammate that you've worked with years ago, I encourage you to spend time to reach out to those folks. Let them know they matter. I'm a big believer that if you make a conscious effort every day to just thank someone or to reach out to someone to let them know how much they matter to you or how something that they did left a lasting impression. I reached out to someone recently who I hadn't spoken to in a while, but they made a lot of lasting impression with me in my personal life and in my career. And I just wanted to express that. And it opened up a dialogue. Those things are very important, and they will not only make you feel good in the moment, they'll make that person feel great. And it could also be an investment into something that can happen into the future. Communication is key when it comes to connectedness. And when you're ever wondering, who should I be reaching out to in any given moment, think about those people that maybe you haven't talked to in a while that you would like to. You'd like to rekindle that dialogue, or you'd like to call out someone for a great impression that they left. And then lastly, talking about rituals and traditions. These are an area of connectedness as well. We're very fortunate, many of us, I know I am, of working with a very diverse workforce and being connected with a lot of amazing people around the world. And I'm always trying to show up curious, and I encourage you to do the same. Showing up curious, wanting to understand what matters to the people that I'm sitting across the virtual table from or the actual table from. What are their rituals? What are their traditions? Whether it's family, whether it's faith-based, different holidays that they may have, different milestones, understanding those types of things. And I would also say, even in the time of loss, or when things don't go our way, or when there is catastrophe or chaos, whether this is with people that we work with, work for, know of, or even our customers, I often tell my team it's so important that in those times of pain or angst, so oftentimes better relationships can be forged by sitting in that angst and that pain with the person, as opposed to just sitting around during times that everything is going right. In times of chaos, our connections become lifelines. That's today's theme. And so by prioritizing the relationships, by looking at ways that we can leverage technology to plug gaps in connectedness, especially as we're separated, finding ways to create and engage with communities, finding ways to practice self-care and also empathy with others, and also embracing creativity of the way we're touching others. Those are the ways that we can create and sustain meaningful bonds, regardless of what is happening around us in our sphere, regardless of the things that are happening in our communities, in our countries, and in our world that we can't control. So I encourage you, amidst catastrophe, remember, our shared humanity is what unites us all. Let's work to be the change, to nurture those connections. They are our greatest source of strength. I appreciate you joining me today on the Connected Teamwork podcast. My name is Carson Hetty. We do these every Monday at 12 o'clock Pacific time, 2 o'clock Central. And we will be back this coming week with my co-host, Hilke Faber, who I dearly miss. Hopefully he's enjoying his well-deserved vacation. And I appreciate everyone being on today. Feel free to leave us a note in the chat, any key takeaways, things that we may have missed. And we appreciate everything that you bring to the Connected Teamwork podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Take a moment to reflect on what you learned today that can help build your team. Also, if you like, think about one of your team members and what you appreciate about them. Let them know. Enjoy connecting more deeply to what is great about them. And see you next time at the Connected Teamwork podcast.